Let's get this straight. I really want this game to be good and to succeed. I don't like to nitpick. Usually I try to see the positive things in games or life in general, but there are some red flags that I just can't ignore when I see them. And that's what happened a couple days ago when Warner Bros. Released a new gameplay trailer for their upcoming game, Gotham Knights. When I saw the first gameplay demo last year, I was actually pretty hopeful. The roster was a nice change of pace, driving around the city reminded me of my adventures with the Batmobile and Arkham Knight, and the gameplay looked fine. The RPG aspect with acquiring better gear and damage numbers seemed a little off, but that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing if it's balanced properly. Injustice 2 had a similar system and that was actually pretty fun. If it's done wrong, however, it can absolutely impact the gameplay in a really bad way. But unless we got the game on our hands, we wouldn't know. So overall, I was actually still down to play and looking forward to it. But this latest demo has me worried, I'm not gonna lie. Let's start with the most obvious problem that many have already pointed out.
Red Hood's ranged attacks are a little louder. He fires non-lethal rounds that still do a lot of damage. Here's Red Hood's barrage ability, which deals piercing damage to interrupt armored attacks. He fires non-lethal rounds, which deals piercing damage. He fires non-lethal rounds that still do a lot of damage.
Alright, so let me get this straight. Red Hood uses non-lethal rounds that can pierce enemies. How would that work, like, ever? Meanwhile, Nightwing just yeets a thug right off the building. You can't tell me that this guy isn't dead. There's no way. So why the hell are Red Hood's bullets non-lethal then? So we have to shoot thugs more before they are down? I mean, I get it. It would just be a boring shooter at that point. But there's so many better approaches. Some of you might not know this, but Arkham Knight actually already had a playable Red Hood. He was introduced through the Red Hood story pack and you could play some missions with him or take him into the training simulations to get high scores. And honestly, that implementation was just so good. Let me show you how that looked like.
Simulation activated.
Just beautiful. Sure, you could argue why use guns at all when you just punch enemies all the time. You have to remember that even though Red Hood uses guns nowadays, back then he was trained by the Big Bad himself in hand-to-hand combat. He was the first Robin to accompany Batman on his crime-fighting adventures until he was eventually kidnapped and killed by the Joker, and then later resurrected with the Lazarus Pit. For me, it added a lot of flavor to the character that he decided to tease his enemies in close combat before taking them out. And whenever he's done with it, he could always just shoot somebody. That approach doesn't work with everybody, I get that, but I'm a much bigger fan of that approach rather than non-lethal bullets that can pierce enemies. I'm sorry, but that breaks my immersion way more. Obviously, I understand why they went in the current direction, since it would just be a 1 or 2 hit kill with Red Hood, which doesn't work with the already mentioned RPG system. But I believe that this game still has the old takedowns from the other Arkham games, or at least something similar. Get enough of a combo going or fill some kind of bar and you can go for an insta-kill. Guns would work with that anyways, so just let this guy punch. Especially since the community seems to agree on one specific thing. Red Hood looks absolutely boring to play in its current iteration. Now this might be a hot take, but I'm not a fan of the animations in this game. Now this could very well be the fault of how this demo was presented. It felt like the person that played this wasn't well versed in these types of games, which isn't a bad thing, but I'm just not sure if that was the reason why the animations and the combat in general felt very stiff, or if it's the fault of, well, the animations and the combat themselves. The Arkham series always felt and looked fluid. It was actually pretty fun to watch people pull off crazy combos in these games. Obviously, this isn't an Arkham game, but we all know that the comparison isn't really far-fetched. But like I said, we'll have to see how this turns out when it releases and we see it in action. Right now, my fear is that it could play a little stiff and clunky. But we'll see about that. I'm hopeful. It could very well just be the demo and the player. The general look of the game is absolutely fine, and even though it seems like the graphics have been downgraded a bit since the first showcase, it's not really a big deal. The city looks beautiful, and they've spent a lot of time on making everything look right, with high quality textures and stuff. I'm a huge fan of the Batman games, and the franchise in general, and can always enjoy a well-done open world game. The concept of Gotham Knights is really cool, the roster looks nice, and WB Games Montreal has proven that they are capable of exactly that when they made Arkham Origins. At its release, it had to deal with a bunch of issues, but eventually it was in a really good spot and is still regarded as one of the best Arkham games. Personally, it's my favorite. I love the gritty and angry young Batman that just smacked his villains left and right to get what he wanted. The writing was amazing and the cutscenes have always been rewarding and enjoyable to watch. But ultimately, it was just another Arkham game, with a couple of changes that followed the pre-established formula. Gotham Knights is going to be their first big release that stands on its own, and I really want it to work out. I hope for the absolute best, and I'm going to look out for more information regarding its systems. I'm excited for October to see how it turns out. I've been starved of a new Batman game since 2015, and really want to experience Gotham together with my friends. With that being said, I hope you liked this video and are anticipating this release as much as me. I know it's been negative, but I really just wanted to succeed, and pointing this out is not necessarily something bad. I hope you have a nice day, and take care.